Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Brains for Gains. Today we got Rob again, and we're just going to kind of shoot the shit, talk about whatever we want to this time around. I was actually curious. I didn't ask you this last episode. I feel like I should have, but what have you been doing for training recently? Has that kind of been more on the back burner?
It's been very much on the back
Yeah, I know
burner.
you're a lot more busy now, too.
Yeah, work has been real busy, which that's no excuse. When you're going to train, you need to prioritize it and make it happen no matter what's going on. But, I play at golf, and I've never been able to marry those two because of the way I like to train. There are ways to train for golf so you can have a proper athletic workout. But my mindset doesn't fit that. My mindset is in a totally different universe when it comes to training, and it is diametrically opposed to everything that I do for golf.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard for me to work the two together because I just can't take the blinders off. When I train, I want to train, and I have some specific ideas of how I want my strength to go, how I want my physique to go, and so I just have to wait until this this little game I'm playing with golf kind of wears out. I get bored with it, and then I'll get back to training and come right back.
Yeah, I feel like it is a little bit counterintuitive because I know like golf, and again, keep in mind, I'm not super knowledgeable about golf, but I do know a lot of it has to do more with mobility, rotational strength, the ability to, have power production, but in a centrifugal kind of way where it's in a direction. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a completely different way of doing things. Instead of sets and reps and the Western style of periodization and pyramiding your sets, or the West Side way of dynamic and max effort days. You can do that and apply it to golf, but you have to do it at a different pace and with a different mindset. So instead of trying to increase my bench, my squat, and my deadlift, I have to think of how can I get faster rotation, get more arm speed, and put force into the ground with my feet to be able to hit that ball and send it 300 plus yards down the fairway.
Right. What kind of programs did you run before when you were training? Like, more
just in my general training?
Yeah.
It started out, I was a baseball player that had kind of run my course, had some injuries, looking for an outlet, and I befriended a guy that was a kind of a bodybuilding competitor locally here in South Carolina. And he invited me to the gym. And I'd been working out a little bit at home with my, we talked about it before.
Oh, the sand weights.
Yeah. So I had very little experience on the real deal kind of stuff. Lat pull downs and all that was all brand new to me.
Yeah.
So he took me to the gym. And so my introduction to it was being around these big bodybuilding physiques and the way that they trained at the time, which was, doing a lot of sets to failure, super high volume, negative reps, all the stuff that we don't do a whole lot of today because it's so detrimental and leaves so much abrasion, to your muscular and skeletal system.
Yeah. And kind of to cut in there, another thing I kind of wanted to mention too, is that a lot of those machines that we used to have back then, they're not really used anymore. You had a couple of machines that I probably in my generation didn't have at all anymore. Like, you remember those like seated rotational work and stuff like that?
Yeah.
It turned out I think those were really bad for your spine.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because we have one here on the premises.
We do here?
Yeah.
Where?
Yeah. It's in the Tsunami Center.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, and again, I don't know that for a fact. It's just, I know that there are coaches or bodybuilders that specifically swore by that.
It really takes just proper education on what to do when you're in it. Because if you try to get in there and because you're working in contraindicated positions, so you can get yourself in a bad spot against resistance that can cause some damage.
Yeah.
So you really just have to be, but when they put that machine in a general population and just let them have at it, it's pretty dangerous.
Yeah, I feel like machines in general, I think that's kind of the catch, right? Is that they're good for specific isolation work and stuff like that, but no machine is going to be built for your exact body mechanics.
Oh, I'll take the leg press as an example.
Yeah.
Speaking of another machine from back in the day, the old vertical leg press.
Oh, the trash compactor.
Yeah. And that's made a little bit of a comeback.
It has.
And it's very effective, but they build them now different, so you have a little bit more lower lumbar support that you had none of back in the day. You had all that tilt that was coming up off the pad, under a full load of 500 to 800 pounds, and just it was. But man, what a pump!
Well, I feel like a lot of us, or a lot of machines now, are being sort of hybridized, right? So, like for example, the pendulum squat was kind of the best of both worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Not only do you have the hip engagement that the old style leg press gave you, the vertical leg press, but now there's obviously like a safety catch, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so I feel like as we're going into the future, we're kind of seeing a more abundance of not only more customizable machines from like a setting perspective, but also machines that take into account that you need some type of free form element that's not on a linear track, right?
Yeah, that makes it to where it fits more people, more of the population, because it frees your range of motion up.
Yeah.
But, and I'll use the Smith machine as an example. Most of them are built on a 7-degree angle, and that's the angle you're going to work with, whether you're benching, squatting, deadlifting, whatever you're doing. That's what you got to do. Mm-hmm. You're kind of locked in. There are benefits to some of these machines. Obviously, they wouldn't be around and they wouldn't be used as much as they are, but they do lock you in to a particular range of motion, whether it's enough or too much. And that's just what you have to work with.
The irony of the Smith machine to me is always that, like, a lot of times you have a lot of people who think it's a perfect entryway into free weights. Mm-hmm. And in actuality, in my opinion, the Smith machine is probably a incredibly high level piece of equipment that only a specific amount of people who are at the high levels of training should be using.
Yeah, I used them. Probably the one thing on a Smith machine, the biggest positive I ever had out of it, because I used a Smith machine in replacement for another machine that was beneficial for a lot of people, but not for me, and that was the hack squat. To get under that hack squat, it was just torture on my knees with all the anterior pressure.
Oh yeah, and the thing is back then those hack squats were built with narrow platforms, so there was no way you could go wide with that stance either. So it's really heavy. That shear force on that knee is not.
Yep. So I would replace that with a Smith machine, so I could at least get a little bit of a posterior angle and still sit back and get the kind of stress on my quads that I was looking for. Mm-hmm. So the Smith machine has some benefits, and some people, we built one here for a professional NBA team. Mm-hmm. And the coach's reasoning was, because we were kind of questioning, why do you want this? Why do you want a Smith machine? And he said, a lot of these guys that we have, they just don't have, his particular players. And this isn't across the board with basketball, because there's some beasts in professional basketball.
Yeah.
But his guys, he said, man, these guys just aren't strong enough to move free weights. 145 pounds, a bar loaded up with 45s was tough, and then they couldn't control it. So he wanted to put them on a Smith machine so he could let them work out without him having direct supervision over them all the time.
Yeah.
But I still kind of questioned that. I kind of thought, well, I don't know if that's the players or maybe it's the coaching.
Right.
Need to do a little better job of the coaching.
Yeah, and that's a big difficulty, I feel like, with a sport like that, where you kind of have an outlier build. I mean, obviously all sports to a degree have outlier builds, right? Like most people aren't built like Michael Phelps to swim. That's a specific outlier build. But the bigger of an outlier you are as far as your body mechanics, the harder it is, I feel like, to work out from a traditional standpoint.
Oh yeah, I take those guys with the super wingspan. Those guys that have incredibly long arms, great reach, extremely athletic. The reach is beneficial to them in everything that they do athletically on the court and on the field. But when it comes to the weight room, it's not necessarily the greatest gift to have when you got to, trying to build, especially if you're trying to, you got some certain things you want to do in the gym, whether if it's building strength and you got to push, a 405 bench press 18 inches longer than what I got to push it.
Yeah, definitely.
And so,
I mean, and it makes sense, right? Like, there is an average height for Mr. Olympia that is pretty consistent.
Yeah.
There's obviously an average build as far as muscle recruitment and hypertrophy goes, that it makes sense for that build and it's superior for that build. And I don't want to, well, let me rephrase. I don't want to say superior, but maybe evenly distributed would be the better way to saying that.
Yeah. Some of these guys, the first one that pops to my mind is Franco Colombo.
An outlier, a huge outlier.
Yeah. That guy he was absolutely born to do what he did.
Yeah.
And he was fantastic at it. His physique was phenomenal. His muscle density, everything about him in his field was absolutely phenomenal. He was really athletic dude too.
Yeah. Boxer before, Golden Glove boxer.
Yeah.
I think.
So a lot of people don't know just how athletic that guy was. They just know him for his bodybuilding feats and some of the early strongman stuff that they did.
And I was going to say, talk about, we always talk about how like shorter guys tend to have a little bit of a harder time doing pulls, but that man, I think he parked a car. It was just like pulling it into space.
Yeah. All by himself.
Yeah. Just moving it from the bumper all the way in.
Those guys, man, some of those classic guys from back in the day, they're phenomenal.
Yeah, I know. And it's funny too, because like, we talked about this last time in the older episode with KT. He said that the supplements that they had back then, even though the name's the same, feel a little bit different, and I did a little bit of research on it, and I think it's something along the lines of like the reasoning why is because, like, let's just look at Dianabol, for example, right? Back then, to get pharmaceutical grade Dianabol, which actually that's a misnomer. There was nothing other than pharmaceutical grade. That's really the reasoning, is because for you to get Dianabol, you would have to go, it would come from a lab somewhere based in the US, probably Utah, because their laws are a little bit more lax there. And so you would know exactly for a fact that it would come from either one distribution center or at the most, maybe like Northern Canada. Now, though, because the industry grade is all over the place, and specifically places like China, where the grade is incredibly flagrant, it's funny because I keep hearing bodybuilders and stuff talk about how the supplements back then were better, and it turns out they were.
Yeah,
the industry standard has gone really, really low. And what's even scarier, in my opinion, is now a lot of the kids are getting more into SARMs and stuff because it's easier to procure. But I think, I can't remember what statistic I read this in, but 50% of all SARMs that are in the U.S. are either mislabeled or tampered with.
I wouldn't doubt that at all. They're always jumping through the hoops to find a way to put their product out there that meets the guidelines without being, illegal.
Yeah.
And then when it does get, that label of being illegal, then all they do is change an ingredient here or there. And,
that's
right back out.
That's the scary part, is that the active ingredient or the effects might be the same, but the side effects are different. Yeah. So, for example, if I'm getting, let's say, Winstrol or Osterine, right? I might be getting a chemical that produces the same active effects. Maybe I'm getting a chemical that's actually increasing my vascularity, let's just say hypothetically. But the side effects are listed as the same, even though they're different. So the problem with that is that now you're loading on side effects that you have no idea what it would be. The active effects are still going to be the same because the chemical compound might be similar enough to where it's not an issue. But anybody who's been in the game knows it's side effect mitigation is a pretty big part of this.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah. Going back to when I was a greenhorn and didn't know much about it, and I was learning everything I learned, from the guys in the gym, and they just learned, and they learned from the people that came before them, and from the limited information that was out there, because it was so taboo back then that it was hard to really find good information. And so we kind of had a regular, a doc that would help us out and kind of keep us on the right track, hopefully, so that we would make better decisions as opposed to making poor decisions.
Yeah.
And so that's where I got started. And I played the game just like everybody else, being a competitive guy. The only thing I wanted to do was beat you today, and then tomorrow I'll pick somebody else. But I'm gonna get somebody every day.
Oh yeah.
to try to climb my way up the ladder and get my seat at the table. And those preferred supplements, they certainly helped. They certainly helped out.
Yeah,
no doubt.
And again, it's one of those things where it's like, we have to lift a taboo to a degree, because this lifestyle has exploded to a point where now it's undeniable that, I mean, let me put it to you this way. 10 years ago, I would not have known what any SARMs was. The reason I know about it today is because I get hit with Instagram ads for it all the time, right? Like, it's an undeniable fact that as this lifestyle and culture explodes, obviously all the advantages that come with something like that is also going to carry on. So with that in mind, since your kids, since your friends, since your family is going to be exposed to, at the very least, the marketing, wouldn't you want them to have at least some type of education behind that before they decide to fill out a credit card form and get something in? Because that's the craziest part, man, is that now it's as easy to buy as if I wanted to buy, like, let's just say, thermogenic diet pills.
Absolutely. You can, and that is the scary part, is that these are some serious supplements that can have some serious effects, positive and negative. And through the all my times of coaching at the college level, post my active period of real training, I still trained after my coaching days, but it wasn't on the competitive level anymore.
Yeah.
And I took it upon myself because at that coaching position, I was surrounded by a new group of young kids every semester, or every year anyway. We get turnover. The seniors graduate, the new freshmen come in, the ones that were freshmen or sophomores right on up the ladder. And they all have questions. They all want to know. They're all curious. They all want to be the biggest. They want the edge is what they want.
Yeah.
And they don't want to get busted, with the NCAA or anything like that. So how do they dance around all that? So I always took it as as the position that I just wanted to inform people with as much knowledge as I could put on them so they could make informed decisions. Now, I never wanted to urge anybody to do anything, but I just want to answer their questions and to give them all the information, because they can get the information. And this is the information age. You can, get it from your phone, your smart television, your computer, everywhere the information is. And you're right. I get them too. The SARMs ads, I get them
all the time, just
like it was, the 6-pack of Diet Mountain Dew was on sale
exactly
at the Walgreens.
Yeah.
So, and early on, I guess the earliest form of a SARM type of supplement, goes back to maybe androstenedione or something like that. And Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa and those guys were taking that during their home run rampage, along with some other stuff, I'm sure, but that was part of it. And when I saw that, I didn't know anything about it, and I thought, well, I'm going to try it. I'm going to see what it's all about. So I investigated a little bit, and I got on a little bit of a cycle of that. And without anything else in my system, that stuff worked just about as good as when I was taking pharmaceutical grade stuff.
Yeah,
it was amazing, and I thought, wow, this is the new deal, and it's only developed from there. So the stuff over the counter, it's there. So the best thing we can do is educate people, so they have all the information, so they can make an informed decision, as opposed to just going out there and trial and error and trying to figure out on the fly.
It's like anything else, right? The reality is that once it's here, it's here. There's really nothing you can do to outlaw or contraband these goods. In fact, in most cases, as we know, usually contrabanding a good makes it much, much more worse, because it degrades the quality of said good. Right?
Oh yeah.
So really, like, it's kind of like, say, what's it called? Safe sex and all that shit, right? It's like, abstinence training just doesn't work. So you have to educate them as best as possible. Same thing, in my opinion, with any kind of PED. That's kind of what you have to do.
Yep. The guidelines are there, high school, college, professional, to where they have drug testing. So you have to know the consequences of what you're doing, and don't be a little bitch and whine about it if you get busted because of the decision that you made.
And the reality is that it really sucks that that's the way it is, in my opinion. I think it's terrible to a degree that every single kid, and we're talking about kids here, who goes into the gym already are treating it like an adult. You know what I mean? Like when I was a kid, right? I kind of came from that era where digitization and information was coming through.
Mm-hmm.
It was virgining, right?
Yeah.
So it was just coming through. So we still had the ability to be kids in the gym, which was to just screw around,
Mm-hmm.
have fun with friends, and that kind of stuff. Now though, it's such a brand, it's such a big identity that these kids feel like they have to go 0 to 100 immediately because
Right.
that's what they want to be perceived as immediately.
Right.
Because unless other people can perceive me as the next bodybuilder or the next big powerlifter, they don't really feel like they have any type of identity.
No, that's the part that concerns me the most is the kids that are coming through, whether they're not getting the guidance at home from people that they should be getting guidance from. They're kind of left out. And I'm talking, just like you said, we're talking little kids, 8th graders, 9th graders, 13, 14, 15
We're talking
years
like
old.
I feel like this honestly starts at like middle school. To me.
Yeah, it's ridiculous to a point because they have the superhero image in their head.
Mm-hmm.
They know what their favorite professional athletes are doing and how they look, and they want to get there right now.
Yeah,
and they feel like the best way to do it is let's take the magic in the bottle. It's going to get me right there.
Well, and it doesn't help that culturally we've both pretended like that's not. We sort of pretended like that's not the image that we promote, but we
Mm-hmm.
still do. Like
Oh,
for
yeah.
example, like a lot of people would say, we don't have the machismo heroes of the 80s. We don't have like, Arnold Schwarzenegger out there being commando, but look at every top grossing film. Is it not a superhero?
Yeah.
And how are superheroes built?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
Yeah.
it's impossible. It's insane to think that a kid wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
Like you're treating these kids as if they are not, you're treating them as if they're choosing something wrong, when in actuality they're just responding to the stimuli, which is programming.
It's almost like they feel like they're expected to achieve that or look like that or be like that because they're not gonna be a winner otherwise. But they just really need to do the work. They need to build the foundation. They got to get in there and get under the bar. They got to learn form. They got to learn technique. There's a lot they got to learn. There's, I guess I was fortunate. It was back in the day because even though I was around a lot of guys that were already on the program,
Mm-hmm.
They really didn't introduce me to the program until I proved myself in the weight room for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like immediately and 2 weeks later, we got to get you on some stuff.
Yeah,
It was,
definitely.
it was, we're once you, once you get some development, once we see how serious you are about this whole thing, once you get your nutrition right, once all the dominoes are lined up, that's when I finally got exposed to it. So I had all the guys did in that gym. They all had a foundation before anybody was ever introduced to anything.
See, my thing is that even if, like, let's say, and I know best, that's kind of the best case scenario, right? Is for you to be trained all the way. But even if they rushed you into it,
Mhm.
at least it was a person. See, my concern now is that it's not even people
Yeah.
that are rushing you into
Yeah.
it. Now it's just a website.
Yeah.
It's just like an unknown bodybuilder who specifically says, hey, this is what I'm on.
Yeah.
And they just immediately assume if I take that, then I can just be that. I think what people don't necessarily want to hear, and the reality of the situation is that, let's just look at bodybuilding, for example, right? Let's just go straight to bodybuilding. You have to have the genetic propensity for bodybuilding. No matter how many chemicals you take, if you're not genetically inclined to be Mr. Olympia, it does not matter how much you load.
Yeah.
It actually doesn't matter even how much you lift.
Yep.
It's just not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
And that's okay, right? That's
Yep.
completely okay to come at that with that. The problem, I think, is that a lot of these kids who go into it, they were never told that.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of these kids that go into it, a lot of them maybe deep down they understand like, oh, I won't be like a C bum, or I won't be like a high level bodybuilder. But I don't know if they really understand that when they start buying,
Yeah,
DVDs.
yeah. I mean, even back in my day when I was really going strong, Lee Haney was just hitting the scene with this. Actually, hadn't won an Olympia yet, but he was a big timer out of South Carolina right here. I saw him guest pose at a Mr. South Carolina event in Greenville, and when he came out on stage, I really wasn't sure. I knew who Lee Haney was.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he really wasn't Lee Haney at the time. When he came out on stage, the transformation in that guy was unbelievable. He has genetics that I would like to have had. I'd still like to have them, but I just don't have them. There's no way that I can come close to matching that, but I can maximize my strengths, which is how I trained all the time, and try to improve my weaknesses. And then you get on stage and you try to get a posing routine, which is going to accentuate your strengths, hide your weaknesses, and so you can put on a good presentation for the audience. Now, it's hard to do when you're going through prejudging because they have some specific things that they're going to have you stand there, put you in a particular position, and they're going to be able to see everything.
Oh yeah.
That's where bodybuilding's won pretty much in prejudging. And then the show was just for later on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, for anybody who's actually interested in bodybuilding, keep in mind I'm really just a enthusiast. I will never perform, like, actually, what's it called, compete or anything like that, right? But I would say for anybody who wants to go actually see like an amateur level bodybuilding competition, because when you're there, when you're not watching it off of a screen, you really realize, oh, that is a different type of person. You know what I mean? Like, and unless you're able to kind of absorb that in and realize like that lifestyle requires immense sacrifices and things like that. Right. I just don't think you're kind of prepared to go into that.
No, it's very consuming. In fact, that's what drove me away from it after a period of years. That the constant, I mean, it's 24/7, 365. There's really no time off if you want to compete at a high level. And I'll use one of our boy KT, the stories about him. He went 14 years. Let me repeat that. 14 years without having any other drinking liquid other than water. No coffee, tea, milk, orange juice, anything, water. He was on a set schedule to where when the timer went off, he had to have a certain amount of proteins, a certain amount of complex carbs. And I don't care if it was at nighttime. If it would get 4 hours of sleep, I got to wake up. I got to get my nutrition. And it was, and then it's costly to do it at that level. To put that amount of calories and quality of food in your system, the way you have to do it to compete, like we did back in the day. It's expensive, but the sacrifice is enormous.
A lot of people always kind of ask me what my fascination is. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm kind of realizing while talking to you what it is. I think it's that it's a performance art where literally every minute of your life is dedicated to that one performance.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's insane. Because here's the thing. There are actors, there are stage actors, there are people out there who make tons of money doing what they do. That's also performance. Mm-hmm. That doesn't have nearly half the sacrifice. No, in my opinion.
No, that sacrifice you make. Gosh, I mean, a lot of people from the outside looking in, because when they watch bodybuilders train in the gym and then watch what they do between sets, it looks like, well, you just did a set and then you're looking at yourself in the mirror again. But that's what it's all. And it's not ego. It's because you have to stay on top of everything. You're trying to shape things just right. Mm-hmm. The balance between everything, the symmetry of everything, and it looks like you're just feeding your ego all the time. But it's very selfish. The sport. If you're going to compete in that, it's all about you.
I know.
You can't be concerned about anybody else.
Well, and the craziest thing is like, I mean, and you know this personally, probably, I would assume, but like how many relationships can survive that kind of sliding scale?
None for me. I mean, for me, that was a period that because it was You know, I had to work out. I had to eat right. I had to sleep right. I had to do everything for me, and that's around the clock. And it just left very little time for anybody else.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
it was very much a time of no other relationships really in my life that lasted for any kind of length of time.
Yeah.
And all my friends, just I'm trying to think of any of them. I do know one. I do know one that they're still married today, but you know, they all ended up in going separate ways.
Yeah, that's actually kind of a little plug or a recommendation, but that's the one thing I love about like the Generation Iron documentaries. They're the ones that cover a lot of the bodybuilding documentaries and stuff like that. They also have a pretty big YouTube platform, I think, where they do like content similar to this actually. But man, if you watch any of those, and it's funny because obviously they're very heavily edited, so you sort of think that, oh, these guys have like maybe lives outside of this,
Right?
But every single one of them is my wife at the time. You know what I mean? like when they talk about their old championships, they always say, "Oh yeah, me and my wife at the time," because there is. I mean, the reality is that there is a. I mean, when you're in a championship mindset, the only things that you keep in your life are things that help with that specific goal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times they were married to other bodybuilders who also were in the industry, who were also helping that person.
Right.
But the reality is I mean, you're going to have to live a incredibly structured life. And most people just can't do that.
Yeah. It's very difficult. And you're right. You hit on something right there with the coupling within the culture of bodybuilding. It seems to be attractive, and it makes it easy because the other person understands what you're going through, but they're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So it still leads to separate lives.
Yeah. It's kind of ironic too, because it's like the attractiveness is discipline.
Yeah.
But then eventually what ends it is also discipline.
It's the discipline.
So it is like this weird irony where, it's a very strange lifestyle to kind of research and look at from an outsider's perspective.
In fact, I think back of when I got in it and I was consumed by it. I mean, and when I say consumed, I was consumed not quite to the level of KT, but I was because we were training partners back then. And but my job had to be the right kind of job, not to expend too much energy through the day because I needed to get my sleep and I had to be ready to work out.
You say that, but Chris Duffin in his autobiography he specifically says the one thing, because I think he used to work at aeronautics, he used to do plane parts. He says the one thing he said in the interview, he didn't ask about benefits, he didn't ask about anything. He said, I have to leave at 5. That is unquestioned. And he's a powerlifter, right? But still, the same concepts still apply.
Same thing.
And he said, there's no way I can stay later than that because I have to train. That is my one condition. I will never stay late, no matter how much of an emergency there is, because that's just how important it was. And that's the attitude it takes to have 1,000-pound deadlift plus raw.
It is.
Yeah,
it is. That's so in my case, I look at I sacrificed. I don't know what kind of financial stability I might have at this point in my life because the training was more important. And I don't regret that. I did what I did. I enjoyed it. All the people I met, I stay in touch with them on a regular basis through social media, but being the platform that makes it easy no matter where we're at in the country. And really I learned a lot of lessons, that discipline that I developed in the gym has carried forward in just about everything that I do.
Yeah.
So it's benefited me in a lot of ways. So you're never going to get me to throw darts, at the system of training and how it kind of consumes you. Just depends on how you end up utilizing it and making it work for you or against you.
And, let's look at it culturally, right? It's kind of like a double-edged sword, right? We live in an era where the self is so important to a degree, right? I mean, we're bombarded with it on social media. The whole point of social media is a celebration of the self. But at the same time, on the other hand, we live in a time where people do not have any type of real self-worth either. Like there are times when you will do things that are underneath you or beneath you because you have to in your life, whether it's staying late at a job and giving up on your passions or giving up on your dreams or whatever, right? On that regard. So it is kind of this double-edged sword where it's like, yes, it is a celebration of self, But that's not necessarily a bad thing when it comes to our generation, I think, because so many people are going to tell you what you're worth rather than you telling yourself what you're worth.
Yeah,
right?
You just said it all right there. I still get tickled at the selfie, the picture, people going around taking pictures of themselves everywhere, and then putting them up there so we can all see it, whether we are interested or not.
Yeah.
But they're celebrating themselves.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing to a point, I suppose. I was brought up a little bit differently to where, what I do and what I'm responsible for, I'm going to take great pride in, and I'm going to celebrate in my, kind of in my quiet corner by myself that I accomplished it. But I'm concerned about, I was always concerned about, how am I helping somebody else? It was more of a team thing for me. I wanted to help others. And that's probably why I got into coaching, because I felt like I could spread some knowledge. I could help people physically to achieve some athletic goals that they had. And, hopefully I've done that, and I've kept in touch with a lot of those guys and girls over the period of time.
And I think it's almost impossible to kind of avoid that, right? If you're passionate about this, you always help people, whether you want to or not. You always do. Like, I'm not a coach. I am the farthest thing from a coach. In actuality, I've only really powerlifted for about a year, because it's the only, I've had weights, but I didn't have weights that went past 300. Right. So I just last year was the first year that I've had that. So I'm new into powerlifting, but there's so many people I help on a day-to-day basis.
You do. I mean, you're a coach, whether you know it or not, because of the content that you put out there is designed to help and inform somebody else.
And I'm a part of a bunch of like close-knit Discord servers and stuff like that, where basically we kind of look over each other's form, make sure that they're doing it right, give them programming that makes sense to a degree, slowly start them on the trail to kind of live that lifestyle a little bit.
Yeah, that was critical back when I got started in that gym with all those guys that were all experienced, and I was the new guy. And I, with the weights that I had, I was able to bench press, deadlift, even though it wasn't very heavy. I didn't have that much weight.
Hey, volume deadlifting is still
and then
still hard,
and then,
still
and
work.
then do some very basic arm move, biceps and triceps. But I had zero experience in squats or any kind of Olympic movements or anything like that. And those guys, I'll never ever forget, how they grilled me over and over and over how to sit back on my squat and be proper body posture to be able to drive through and keep the chest up and if I'd have been doing that on my own, I'd have been horrible, and I probably ended up hurting myself somewhere along the line.
And and to kind of go along those lines, although I would say that, because I feel like a lot of people, especially people maybe in the athletics world or people who are not, who don't necessarily think bodybuilding is attractive, right? I think they can kind of get to the point where they say like, oh, what those guys are doing, that's all just a worship of self. Right? But the reality is that the amount of critical thinking skills and things that you gain by going down that route, I just don't think I think it's worth that. Like, even if the criticism is there, like, for example, for me, there's been tons of times that I've been told, you're doing something wrong. Right. And of course, a lot of the times our response to criticism is to kind of be vitriolic. But the reality is it teaches you in life that there is some criticism that you have to understand is correct, take into account, and auto-regulate yourself. And there's some types of criticism where you have to go, no, you're wrong. And the reality is I think this sport, whether you're in it from the powerlifting perspective, the strongman perspective, or the bodybuilding perspective, gives you the ability and the backbone to be able to be honest about yourself and who you are.
Yeah.
And I think almost no other social based platform does anything like that. In fact, most of the time, the people who are posting pictures of going to India on vacation or whatever are usually the ones that enjoy it the least, because they're doing it for the people who follow them. People who actually have meaningful experiences don't post about it because it's meaningful to them,
right?
No one else,
right?
So I don't know. It's weird because it is kind of a I take the good and the bad of this industry, but I love it either way.
Yeah. And I do too. I mean, I don't participate in it like I used to, but, I still, gosh, I get on YouTube and I'll watch stuff from the classic era. Then I'll watch stuff from the newer guys that are out there. They're still on stage. They're big. They're bigger. I mean, they're like cartoonish big in some cases.
Oh, dude, yeah.
But I still appreciate all the time and effort that they put in to get to that point.
Yeah.
And even though that's not for me, I understand what it took for them to get there.
I also think there's a beauty in reverence too. Like almost no other sport has this appreciation for the classic era like this sport does. Like even powerlifting, right?
Yeah.
There's tons of people who know old powerlifters that were incredibly strong that still teach day to day, that become kind of legendary. Right. That rarely exists, right? I mean, we have Jordan and we have the LeBron conversation all the time. Excluding that though, where do you ever see that?
Oh gosh, I don't.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that there's an appreciation for history in this sport that seems like it's not in any other.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm trying to think back, just through some of you just mentioned a little bit on basketball. Baseball is steeped pretty well in history. But you almost have to research it. They don't put it in front of you quite as much. Bodybuilding, oh my goodness! When I think of those bodybuilders from back in the day, Frank Zane, even going back before him was Sergio. Gosh, who was the? We talked about him one time. Now this goes back, I mean, like into the archives of history. Sandow.
Sandow, yeah. Eugene Sandow.
Yeah. I mean, what how interesting his story is.
Yeah.
If anybody wanted to look something up that finds an appreciation for this culture, look that up and check him out.
Not just that, but what's so cool about Sandow is that he is kind of a time capsule of a physique. He had incredibly defined and built shoulders, but a very, very narrow and small chest.
Yeah.
Because it was at the time in the sport when the bench press didn't exist.
Right.
It was all shoulder. It was all overhead press.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah. So until I think it was Thomas Inch who was the one who eventually did.
Yep.
And of course, Thomas Inch would be built exactly how you would imagine, which is like imagine the Monopoly Man, but for like a barrel for a chest. And that's kind of like the idea. Yeah, that's kind of what he looked like,
yeah, that guy was a beast too.
I know.
When I first saw him, and I guess we were going to pick up that dumbbell.
Yeah, the inch dumbbell.
Yeah, I thought, well, the dude that he's got in the video with him looks way more capable of picking this thing up and couldn't budge it. And Inch just yanked it off the ground.
I know.
Like it was nothing. I mean, that guy was something.
I think that time what would have been so cool too is that, like, today we had so many archetypes of bodies.
Yeah.
But back then that didn't exist. So when you saw a naturally born, just absolute freak of a person who was able to put on, because you got to also consider, like, those guys are putting on mass probably on some type of caloric deficit.
Probably.
No way these guys are, I mean, it's just the time period of what it was, and to be able to see somebody that size when the average height was 5'0" and most people weighed like 135 tops, that would have been an insane thing to see.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I would, I guess I was intrigued as a kid, even though I didn't see much of it, like a traveling circus, but the one strong man, the guy that lifted the barbell that had the two giant globes on each end.
Yeah. Bonus points if it had numbers written on it.
Oh yeah, I mean, these guys, the history of this culture and this sport is fascinating to say the least.
Yeah, and to kind of close out that little portion, I want to say, like, yes, I obviously other sports have an appreciation for the beginning of their sports. We still have, ESPN will still sometimes play highlights from the back in the day and all that kind of stuff. But how many people do you know that will still train like somebody from 50 years ago just because of nostalgia alone? That doesn't exist, right? Like in any other place. People are still willing to do Arnold Schwarzenegger's program from 1970.
Yeah.
Even though we've had 50 years of not only equipment advance, but programming advance, just because the star power is still there.
Yeah, back I guess before West Side program got started, and people were in the West here were trying to figure out how the Russians dominating us in the strength world. Mm-hmm. Now this goes back 70 years plus, but we're trying to research the archives of their old literature of how they did it.
Well, you'll laugh.
We can reproduce it.
Because you'll laugh because I actually have a couple of the old books that were converted to PDF, on my computer. What's so interesting is like, and now it's such a cultural explosion, but back then it was a scientific one.
Oh, for them it was supremely scientific.
So it's so strange to see bodybuilders in a peer-reviewed medical research paper, but that's what they did.
Yeah.
And it's like so interesting to flip through. And of course, the Arnold book is probably one of the most fun because it's like knowing what I do now and reading it, I'm like, no way this man did this workout, you know? But like, it's interesting to go through and see kind of the mysticism and the mystique and almost like a first class kind of appeal to like these were the first class of their time kind of thing, It's fun to kind of go through those old books and see the reverence that they had for it and how they really made it all about science, even though it really wasn't. It was more cultural based.
It was incredible. And it's like a revolving door. The stuff from back then ends up coming back around, but it gets a new name. I'll go to one that, I can't remember how long ago it was. It wasn't too many years ago. And somebody came to me, young fella came to me and wanted to tell me all about the German HIIT program. Like, what does that entail? Well, you put this much weight on it and you do 10 sets of 10. And I went, dude, those are just called hundreds. We did that years ago.
Yeah. Or like the funniest one I think I saw was there was this person who was really getting into kettlebell training.
Yeah.
And they made this whole book and stuff. And then you look back in the past and you realize like, oh, Russia had that like way back.
Yeah, they are so far, far ahead of you.
Yeah.
But when it comes back around, and I'm just as gullible as anybody when it comes to that. I go, yeah, I'll try that. I'll do it again.
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that, right? Because like the difficulty, because I know a lot of people in this industry, specifically from the powerlifting side, I feel like more than anything else, are very adamant about like being against quote unquote like muscle building charlatans or whatever. But the reality is that like usually it's not that they're charlatans, it's that their goals are usually different.
That's all it is.
And that's something that you kind of have to be aware of. Like you can't just, nobody out here is saying that this is the best for whatever you're, because see, that's the problem, is that a lot of people will see something like that and say, this person is trying to prescribe to me what's best for my life. But in actuality, what they're saying is this is best for what I'm teaching. Usually it's a sport. Like a lot of people online, I feel like get a lot of hate for these really interesting and obscure workouts. But again, a lot of the times it's like 5% of the programming tops usually. The only reason they showcase it is because it's the most weird and attractive. It's the freak show logic. But the reality is that like, you can be mad and vitriolic all you want, but they're just saying this is what I train for a very specific sport.
It is. It's very specific, and I see the same thing. People getting all bent out of shape, their panties are in a wad because somebody's promoting something that that they feel like is not correct or doesn't fit what they do. And I've seen it from the strength coaching side. I've seen it numerous times over the years to where. And I'll use a power lifter as an example. They'll come into a strength program and wonder, well, if I was over here coaching, every one of your linemen would be squatting 800 pounds. Everybody be deadlifting over 6. And I have to back them off the ledge a little bit and go, look, we're not training power lifters over here. We're training football players. We have to be mobile. We have to be able to change direction. We have to be
100%.
We have to do all this other stuff that doesn't necessarily meet the bench press, squat, and deadlift number. So in fact, they're irrelevant in what we do. We want to be able to grab cloth and make tackles. We want to be able to break tackles. We want to do all the other stuff. And the same thing applies with bodybuilding and powerlifting. And I know some of the powerlifters are going to get really pissed at me. But I'm just saying it in fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah. In jest.
Yeah, in jest.
jest.
All the power lifters, most of them came from they were bodybuilders that couldn't take the diet. So
that cuts a little deep into my heart a little bit, but yeah, sure. Yeah. I feel like I don't like that you made eye contact with me while you said that, but that's fine.
No, I'm just interested. I want to get my hair to do what yours is doing.
Oh, dude,
I don't have enough.
Dude,
if I
that
could
would rock.
Pull mine up like that.
You would have like a Shogun. You would have we don't have a visual component of this episode yet, but we might have to upload a picture just to show. Yeah, dude, you'd have the Shogun haircut.
No, man, I'd have me a what do you call it's a specific name. It's not a sword. What is it? What
the shorter one?
Yeah,
the wakizashi.
I'd have that one in the sheath, ready to roll.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. 100%. That's right. I got one in the office.
Oh, I love it. I swear, if I had,
I love how you were like, let me give a vague description and see if this man hits it right on the head. Just immediately.
If I could grow enough hair to do that, I would be all in.
Yeah, that's cool. It's funny too because the history of that sword is that it was never used. It was just to represent that you were a samurai.
Is that a fact?
Yeah. So they would have a katana, which they would actually use. And then the wakizashi was just to let them know, other people know that this was somebody who had
I didn't know that. I thought that was a
samurai,
a weapon of destruction.
No, that right there, that's like a badge / status symbol. Because another reason why too is that during the feudal era, if you were like a peasant, they could just kill you. So that, without any type of legal repercussion, really. So that's another reason they had that, is so that, they would be respected.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it was just a status piece. I think the only time they would ever use it may be in ritual suicides. Mm-hmm. I think that was it though.
I love the style. I mean, nothing beats that Japanese steel. That stuff is the hardest.
that folded steel.
Oh my gosh! I mean, they know how to make those weapons.
I love it too because you're literally talking about shit that I love. So it's like we're kind of going down like the Byung trail right now.
That's all right. It's not in the weight room all the time.
Yeah,
there's other things in life.
Yeah, it's funny, kind of going back to the topic, but one thing that, like, for example, obviously, if you look at me, you would say, oh, if that guy was one thing, it probably would be like in powerlifting, right? What's funny is that even though I'm probably more a powerlifter than anything else, I like the viewpoint of bodybuilding a little bit more. What I found through all the communities that I interact with is that bodybuilding is one of those communities where people are incredibly respectful until they perceive you as a visual threat. You know what I mean? Like unless you're a bounty hunter that's coming for them.
Yeah.
Everyone's very respectful.
Yeah.
Powerlifting's weird because like powerlifting has kind of almost like a modality fallacy where basically if they don't follow one specific modality set by somebody who is higher up, then people just don't like that at all.
Huh.
Which is weird because again, everyone knows this who's at any basic level of strength training, is that everybody has different muscle profiles. So everybody has a different stimuli that works for them, that works best for them. But till this day, we'll still have arguments all the time about percentages, RPE, and all this stuff. And it's like, there is no such thing as the best way. There is only something that is the best for your specific build.
Yeah, I've coached that for forever. And I try to emphasize to people that there's going to be a trigger, and your efforts of trial and error, taking little bits of information here and there, trying to put together a program that works for you, you're finally going to hit on a trigger that is going to get more stimuli working for you. That's going to make your arms grow. It's going to get your chest. You're going to find it.
And what's difficult,
you have to get in there and dig.
It takes a lifetime too.
Yeah.
For a lot of people.
It can be, in my case, the chest part came easy for me. The arms part came easy for me. The back part came easy for me. The posterior chain with the glutes and hamstrings came easy for me. Getting quad density, really wide, thick quads. I had separation, but it was hard for me to grow them. It was hard for me to figure it out. Calves, we'll talk about something else.
I was going to say, and it's funny because I was going to bring that up. I was going to say, if we knew for a fact the objective best way to work out, we would have a bulletproof calf system. Yeah. And we don't. It doesn't exist. It's a myth. It doesn't exist. The only way you have good calves is if you're Asian or you just have some type of weird and here's the thing. It's like you might have good calves, but relative to the rest of your body, probably not.
Yeah, the calves, I swear, you're born with them or not. But I could never develop.
I'm coming at it like, and again, this is my take. If training had an objective 100% best method, we would have a calves program that works 100%.
You could be a millionaire in a week if you had a foolproof calf.
Yeah. There's and it's so funny because, dude, the amount of calf work you guys did in your time.
Oh, we tried it all.
Literally everything.
Stack people on your back for donkey calves.
Yeah.
We'd have the calf machines.
Yeah.
We'd drive the seated calves. We put barbells across our knees. Incredibly painful.
16 sets of 12.
Yeah, I mean, it was
400-pound with 3mm.
So
range.
much stuff we've done with calves and to try to get them right. It's just and then you look at the ladies, they walk in high heels and all of them got nice calves.
Yeah.
So maybe we should have lifted in heels or something.
Maybe
I don't know.
Maybe that's the next. I'm starting to sense a program that we might have to build out soon. I don't know what it is, but I think we got it.
Yeah, it's incredible. I got you pegged as you're built for bodybuilding.
Yeah,
I mean, you got that physique that would absolutely be rock star.
I think most people struggle with shoulders and chest, and that's kind of the main abundance that I have. So the other stuff should come easy. It's just, I don't know. I think the hardest part about bodybuilding, and keep in mind, I'm not somebody who's ever really done it to an extended amount of time. You just feel terrible.
Yeah. That's why the job had to fit the program.
Yeah, literally.
Because you're going to be so trashed just to be able to get your sleep, get up in the morning, and then have to go do some physical work all the next day and then train again.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. It just doesn't work.
My problem is that I would be my productivity would go down to the point where I would have to go into bodybuilding full time, and I would obviously never be there. It's just not. Yeah, it's just not a real possibility on that.
It's man, it is difficult. I will say
it's one of the. I mean, obviously, a lot of sports are like this, but most sports the PED is the exception. That's when you're at that level. In this sport, the PED is the rule.
Oh, there's no doubt. I get that question about. First the question I always get is, do you ever have any negative side effects? Well, I was one of those fortunate guys that I really never had any. I never had any acne problems with it. I never had. Any heart issues or blood or any of the liver, all the stuff that can be associated with it. But then I didn't pile on with it either. I try to be responsible.
And keep in mind, a lot of the times the worst side effects aren't necessarily from just doing tests. It's usually from stacking. And then of course the problem is that we talked about this earlier in the episode. As more impure the chemicals get, and more stacks you do, that's obviously like a compounding variable. Yeah,
and that's and going back to that's the one. If I was to even think about making another run, even at my age, I still think I got another run in me.
And I want to see it so bad.
The last one I had was right when I turned 60, and I was doing pretty good for a 60-year-old.
Oh yeah,
in the gym, and now that I've had a couple of years off, I still want to go one more time. I still feel really good. I still feel all my parts are working well. I can still do plyometrics and do the things that I need to do to be athletic, because I don't like to give that part of it up.
Yeah,
in the weight room.
And just to kind of go into it, most of your era bodybuilders, they don't. That's one thing that I will say is that a lot of you guys are incredibly mobile. A lot of you guys, obviously a lot of you guys aren't also because there's a lot of injuries and stuff.
Oh yeah.
But there is a balance to your guys' generation that I don't think is kind of existent anymore.
Yeah, and that goes when I won't and it's not. I have to dance around this a little bit because it's not an umbrella over everybody. Some of these really cartoonish looking figures that walk out on stage, they can't put their fingertips on their shoulder caps. So I can't imagine them trying to throw a baseball or cast of fishing, if they just want to go fishing or do something really easy, or bowling, or just anything,
or just like you're saying, just like living life in maintenance.
It's they do what they do, and that's the kind of the lane they're in.
And again, that goes for every sport, because a lot of the powerlifters that are in the super heavyweights, right? They're built like basketball players. They should be built like basketball players, but they're not.
Yeah.
They're and a lot of them towards the end of their life will either have to cut or it'll kill them. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. Yeah. A lot of them have. I mean, look at Thor.
Oh yeah. Yeah. What a difference. I really didn't take a look at his current physique until he had that little boxing match. With Hall.
Yeah. And, Even Hall.
Oh, him too. Yeah, him too.
Considerably.
And then when I saw him, and I thought, wow, that's quite impressive. What they've done to transform like that. So I kind of looked into it, especially in Hall's case, and he really talked about he did something so simple, and that was just to get out and walk.
That's all it takes.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
Just walk.
When you're that size, body recomposition is just a few steps a day.
I'm telling you.
But I mean, it's true.
That's all. It's not like he did spin classes all the time. Or if he did, he didn't talk about it.
Well, it's funny, but like to kind of apply to my life, like I own pit bulls, right? The most muscular dogs you can imagine. When they get a little overweight, they just got to walk, and they're fixed. It's just they lose it immediately. They lose it immediately. They just 20-minute walk a day tops. Yeah. They're tired, and then they just lose all that weight. That's what having high contractile tissue does to a man, dude. Yeah. You just lose it quickly.
Well, just and I was one of those guys that my training was first, so I would just waste myself on whatever day it was. It was push pull, chest back, shoulders and arms, legs, whatever it was, and then I would really ignore the cardio until it became several weeks out from competition.
Yeah, I'm doing that now, so I shouldn't. Yeah. I shouldn't be doing that, but I'm sort of doing.
And then when
now,
you get on it, get on the cardio. It didn't take much. For me, it was just a life cycle. I'd get on the bike for 20 minutes.
Yeah,
that's all I had to do.
And it's funny because the reason I'm glad you're bringing this up is, again, we kind of talked about it last episode, but if you're a starting lifter, stop cutting.
Yeah.
Stop cutting at the start. I mean, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
And just to kind of provide scientific evidence for that, like thermogenically speaking, you will be at a higher metabolic rate if you decide to bulk first and then cut.
Absolutely.
And that's even if because here's the thing, if you bulk successfully, you might look at yourself and go, why do I even need a cut? Because it turns out I didn't look bad because I was fat. I looked bad because I had no muscle.
None.
Yeah. I was just bones and skin and organs.
Yeah. Once you put that muscle on, it burns more calories throughout the day just to maintain itself than you can possibly imagine.
I think it was something like, and again, somebody in the comments can always just fact check me. So, So just put that in the addendum. But I think it's like only about 15% of your caloric intake is burned with exercise, no matter how hard you go. The rest is all thermogenic through just living your life, through doing basic things like walking around, mental stuff, things like that.
Yeah, so. That it takes some calories just to live your life if you sat in a chair all day.
And if you've ever had a deload week where you didn't work out, you really understand how many calories you actually need versus how many you are using for muscle growth.
Yeah,
dude, on weeks I don't lift, I might be eat 1.5 meals. There's no need to. It just doesn't, I'm just not hungry, nor do I feel the need to eat. Now, deload weeks, I eat considerably because it's a deload week. That's actually deload weeks, I might eat more because that's where I feel the most full.
Right.
Like, it's partially because my CNS and all that's overblown too. So I feel the most hot, which is clearly a thermogenic thing.
Right.
I'll run even if I do 60% of my volume and intensity, I'll run a slight fever and I'll turn red. It's really weird.
That is weird.
Yeah. But then afterwards, I feel great.
Huh.
Yeah, the week after. Not only do I feel great, but I feel the strongest and the fullest I am. It's weird. I'm the weakest during deload weeks, but I'm the fullest. I'm the widest. I'm the biggest.
Yeah.
And then, which might be inflammation. I'm not even sure. But then it moves on to that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Trying to think back to some of the dieting cycles, getting ready for any kind of shows, and a lot of getting weaker. It was due to some.
For you guys, it had to have been dehydration, right?
Well, I mean, we were dehydrated because we tried every diet there was to try. You know,
Yeah.
when the low carb thing came out years and years and years and years ago, talking about 30 plus years ago for me.
Yeah.
And, you know, I knew a couple of bodybuilders that had great success with it. They looked great.
Uh-huh.
I tried it and I tanked.
Low carbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It did not work for me. And then I had a conversation with Lee Haney in Atlanta when he before he moved there. He happened to be in the gym that I was at. And he turned me on as a baked potato. He said,
oh yeah, you told me about this.
Yeah,
I think.
and that made all the difference for me.
Yeah.
If I had a protein, whether it was tuna or chicken or beef of some sort, if I had the protein and combined that with a baked potato,
Yeah.
I was vascular, I was full, I was strong. Everything worked better.
Would you do butter on the baked potato or no?
For me, no.
Okay. Because I was wondering, maybe the reason why it wasn't working might have been that not only were you cutting carbs with fat and too much fat.
Yeah, I might, if it was super dry and I needed to moisten it up with something, I'd put like maybe a little oil of some sort on there.
It could have been the fat content that was actually.
And it could have been. I mean,
Yeah.
because we didn't have the scientific balance back then. We just had to figure out what worked.
Yeah, I mean, and also it doesn't help that you call it fat, and then of course getting fat is, so a lot of people just think, oh, if I don't eat fat, I won't get fat. When in actuality, fat is an incredibly important part of your diet.
Huge.
Your brain's like 80% fat.
Yeah.
So it's like you need some type of fatty things in there to.
So those kind of diets worked. The low carb worked horribly for me. Adding those complex long chain carbohydrates worked tremendously well for me.
Yeah.
And then once the metabolism really got rolling, you'd have those periods where you felt like I have got to eat something, or you know, I'm going to shut down. If I don't. Then the simple sugars, you know, some fruit or something like that would help me out a lot.
Yeah.
But everything is it's complicated and simple at the same time.
Oh yeah, and that's I think the bare bones of this sport in a nutshell, because it's like, it's so funny because, again, I told you about my friend who was he quit as a fitness trainer because nobody wanted to get strong.
Mm-hmm.
Like his job was to basically just make people feel good about why they're at the gym, but it wasn't to get them strong, which seems insane.
Yeah.
But the reality is that to get strong, most of the time, it's the most bare bone stuff. It's not sexy.
Yeah.
That's the reason why most people don't want to do it.
Yeah.
You know, bare bones 5x5, no matter how much you hate it, will get you strong to a level. It works. I mean, if you're a beginner.
Yeah.
You know, but what they want to do is 4 sets of 12 on lat pull down to feel sexy.
Yeah. Yeah. I reviewed a young man brought his program to me just recently.
Yeah.
And
so much volume, I'm assuming. That's always
he said one of his brothers, he had a couple of brothers, that one of his brothers' friends, who was all jacked up, said, "This is what you need to do." Right?
Yeah. 6 different bicep workouts.
It was
long head, short head,
30 something sets of chest. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
I see it all the time.
How it was tons of chest, tons of arms, but there was no direct application for shoulder work.
Oh yeah.
It was just indirect through chest or arms or whatever, you know, as a supporting group. There was no back in it, no pulls, and there was 0 leg work in there.
Yeah.
So
you know what's so funny is that, like, a lot of the times when I see those beginner programs, it's actually the leg portion that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Because it's the only time, and of course it makes sense because a lot of people are hate doing legs because it feels bad and there's no attractiveness to it, right?
Yeah.
So the leg volume actually makes sense. It's everything else that doesn't.
Yeah.
It's like 6 different bicep movements. Like, and of course, by the time you do all the sets, you're maybe lifting the bar tops.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we're talking like 12 sets.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's like, it's just so funny what people think promotes growth.
Oh, I laugh.
What's crazy is that TikTok, there's a ton of people who post shit like that on TikTok all the time.
Oh yeah.
And it's nuts.
There's years ago, I had I was kind of doing some personal training on the private side, and had this contractor who was a pretty athletic guy, and he came in, wanted to work out.
Yeah.
He wanted to lose some weight.
Yeah.
And he wanted to have that more muscular appearance.
I love that, by the way. I love it when somebody comes in and goes, how do I lose fat and gain muscle at the same time?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you got to do steroids. You know what's funny?
You want the quick answer?
I won't say the name, but I remember when I first worked out in high school, I asked my coach that. I said,
Yeah.
Coach, how do I lose fat but also gain muscle at the same time? And he literally said, you just got to get on steroids.
Yeah, right.
That's the only answer. That's the only answer for that specific. It's so funny.
Oh, goodness. And this guy, I was giving him a rundown of what we're going to do. And he had these shorts on and his tank top. And he was warming up on the treadmill.
Yeah, at least he came dressed.
He did. He was ready to work out.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you're coming 3 days a week. And this is the breakdown of how we're going to get some lower body, upper body, some cardio in. And he said, man, I don't mind doing the cardio and the upper body, but I've never had anybody come up to me and tell me about I needed some leg work. And I said, well, I can tell you, I'm looking at him right now, and brother, you need some leg work.
Yeah.
Don't tell me you don't. Guys just don't want to do it.
It's
like you said, it's not what we see in the mirror when we're putting the shirt on in the morning.
What's crazy to me is that now guys probably are more inclined to deadlift before they squat, which feels insane.
Mm-hmm.
That feels completely backwards to me.
Yeah, I always had my deadlifts on a separate day.
You have to. It's almost, in my opinion, and this is just from my experience, it's very difficult to increase numbers on both squat and deadlift consecutively.
Yeah, I could dead and then do a what we termed back then as heavy day, light day. I would do a light day workout with legs.
What's difficult now?
Secondary.
What's difficult now is that, like with powerlifting now going towards the more RP school of thought. Mm-hmm. What happens a lot of the times is that deadlift will just completely mess up all your other numbers, because if you deadlift heavy, you're so, deprived. Mm-hmm. And of course, like, the science of it is that if you're glycogen deprived, it really doesn't matter, or ATP deprived, whatever, it really doesn't matter how strong you are later in the day. Like, you know what I mean?
Everybody's got an opinion of what the king of all exercises are.
Yeah.
And for me, it's one of two. It's either the squat or the deadlift. And if I was going to pick one, I'm going to take the deadlift.
Yeah.
It's just something about that deadlift for me over the years.
Yeah.
That when I really started applying that move heavy, and I'm talking heavy with volume, we do 405 for sets of 15. Mm-hmm. And then we take it on up from there, get up around 600 pounds, do sets of 5.
Yeah, like a basic pyramid.
Yeah, right? Pretty much. And but all my development got so much better once I really started applying the deadlift. Traps got better, shoulders got better, back got better, legs got better, mm-hmm. Everything got better. So if I could create my foundation and build everything off the deadlift, all my other groups seem to come around.
Yeah,
and fit into place.
I'm kind of an outlier because my deadlift is considerably weak in comparison to my other lifts. I mean, obviously it's still the highest, mm-hmm. but I'm not an 800-pound deadlifter, right? What's so interesting to me is that I feel like a lot of the gains that people make from deadlift is not necessarily the movement, but the mentality. I think it gives you the ability to push harder because it's the only lift where if you decide to quit, you can quit at any time.
Yeah, pretty much. You just got to let it go.
Yeah, other lifts will just kill you.
Yeah.
If you decide to quit,
Yeah, it's hard to stop on that squat. I was always good at getting the really heavy squats.
Yeah.
I could do a half lift. I get it all the way down.
I'm different. I'm almost the opposite in my approach. I think the bench press and the squat are two of the most important because it's the two lifts that are explosively based mm-hmm. and the same to that degree. I think they're both push work where, depending on your specific way of doing it, it can be an incredibly explosive workout. Mm-hmm. And I think deadlifting is kind of a barometer. It's more of like now, obviously, if you're a powerlifter, don't listen to what I'm saying because you have to have a good deadlift to be competitive because your max is going to be defined by that deadlift.
Yeah.
A lot of people out here with 600-pound deadlifts and 225 bench and lower. I mean, the reality is I don't necessarily like seeing that, but that's what the sport appreciates, mm-hmm. right? That's how you get the numbers. Oh, kind of a random tangent here, but did you know that they are about to ban arching and benching possibly? They're talking about that in powerlifting.
No,
yeah,
I haven't heard
they're talking about that. It's
now. Are they going to measure it somehow?
So we don't know yet. It's just something that right now they're talking about. There are people who are saying that what they're probably going to do is there's going to be some type of either arm-based measurement where it has to go at least right angle.
Uh-huh.
Some people are saying they're going to have to flat bench outright.
Uh-huh.
Some people are saying that maybe the new competition bench is going to have a slight decline so that you don't have to arch,
Uh-huh.
which I hope that's the direction they go. Just because I feel like if you're going to have a sport where everyone's measured by their raw power, then you have to have an apparatus that allows everybody to have a specific marginalizability of power. For example, like if we're allowing sumo, which we know for a fact is advantageous for people with a specific mechanical build, then having a bench that also minimizes that mechanical variance obviously would be good.
Right.
So I feel like that might be the direction they go, but I think literally they've had enough of the 1-inch ROM.
You know, I think it was a female I saw. She had such a tremendous bridge.
Yeah.
That I can't remember the weight she pushed, but it was, you know, it made me look twice. I mean, it was amazing how much. But I also noticed that it didn't move, but maybe 2 inches.
And you know, the thing is that's in every, specifically, it seems like it's more, well, I mean, obviously it's in the more lightweight category too. Cause there's a lot of people, I can't remember what federation it is, but there's a guy who has a shoulder press max and he's arching so heavily with his back. I'm talking like to the point where the range of movement is cut down by at least 6 inches.
Yep.
And like that obviously makes a huge difference.
Oh yeah. I saw a video. In fact, there's a guy that I know, and he was talking about his seated military press. Well, that was an inclined bench.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, exactly. Well, see,
what that was.
That's the thing is that like is that specific movement. The hardest part is switching from triceps to shoulders, right? That flip. That's where people black out. That's where I almost damn near black out when I'm going on my heavy days.
Yeah.
If you make it so that you're not actively changing that, if you're not having a 2-step process, which some of these people aren't, they're literally just all shoulders because they're able to not have to engage tricep at all. Starting from back here with their arch. I'm sorry, I was far away from the mic, but with their arch. I mean, yeah, it completely mitigates that sport. Personally, to me, I think powerlifting should be more of, and I might get a lot of flack for this, but I don't really care. I think it's a hobby. I don't necessarily think it needs to be a sport. I don't think it needs to be like a televised sport. I think it needs to be more of a thing you and your friends do that you sometimes record and put online to compete against each other. But I don't know if this like whole need for federations nationwide, it needs to exist anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely not that it was super noticeable back when I was at my prime in the lifting, but it's even less noticeable now. And it's possibly because I'm not in the circle anymore.
Yeah.
But I never hear about, you know, the meets anymore. I don't, I just, you know, I used to hear about them, or I could go into one of the supplement stores locally, and there'd be entry fees for a particular meet, whether it be for a bench, squat, deadlift, or just a pull meet, or just a squat meet, or just a bench meet. But there were always something, but I don't see any of that anymore.
You know,
I don't know what the deal is.
What's funny is that I think what happened, you know, it's crazy because somebody like me who's not only in the industry, but interested in the sport, I don't hear about it until the day of it happening. Yeah. And then people will like post links of it happening somewhere like in California or something like that. And then we'll see a mirror of the video or whatever. But like by the time I'm watching it, it's already halfway over because I don't know. It's weird. I think what happened is that powerlifting became attractive from a cultural standpoint, but not necessarily from a visual standpoint. And so what you have now are people who do it almost begrudgingly, but know nothing about the sport. And I'm kind of like that too. Like I couldn't give you 10 of the best powerlifters who ranked off the top of my head.
I couldn't either.
And I think partially what the federations are now doing is they're fixing it because they want the sport to be more watchable. But I don't know. I mean, strongman has none of those limitations. Right. It's insanely watchable, and it still doesn't necessarily have the numbers that it, in my opinion, it should have. Right. Powerlifting's not going
to. I don't think as far as a viewership, to watch a show on television for guys coming through and girls coming through to do a bench press, a squat, and a deadlift isn't that exciting for me. And going back a few years when I first really started getting introduced to the powerlifting part after my bodybuilding phase, I decided I wanted to increase my numbers a little bit. The guys that I kind of got together with to kind of teach me some of the things I didn't know about powerlifting, they all wore gear. They all had squat briefs and bench shirts, and I couldn't figure at the time, and I still don't. I'm not a fan of them. I mean, I'm not saying that there's not a place for them. Maybe there is. If you like them, great. It's not for me. And it always came to my mind that if I'm not strong enough to bench press 500 pounds, then putting a shirt on to help me bench press 500 pounds, you can't do it.
Right. You're talking about the equipped part
yes.
of it. Yeah.
And
that's crazy because I haven't even gotten into that part, but like, I mean, yeah, you're right. There's a huge divide.
Oh, huge.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, that's some nasty arguments.
Well, let me put it to you this way too. Just to kind of reiterate that point, most people in powerlifting have a way to bench with a suit and without a suit.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a technique that has to be specified for you to be able to do it with equipment and it varies from the movement that you do it without, it's a different move.
It is.
It's a different sport. It's a different, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh, like, yes. It's not the same thing.
Yeah. Gosh, I mean, I just can't, I can't get those images out of my mind when somebody, because it took at least 2 people to help you get into your bench shirt.
Yeah.
Because the guy getting in the shirt had to hold on to a rack.
Oh, yeah.
While the 2 other guys were trying to pull it around your shoulders, and they still couldn't, connect it in the back. But
and you look like a potato in a wetsuit.
And
then,
a good look. You can't even put your arms down. They're zombie-like. You're walking with your arms straight out in front of you.
Yeah, you're right.
And then you got to put, and I was watching these guys bench. I mean, this is the way it is. You had to put at least 225 on the bar just so it could push your arms down enough to get the bar down to your chest.
To get to warm up, basically.
So, and then when they took the shirt off, they'd be bruised to all.
Oh, dude, they would just come out purple.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I thought, man, I don't want any of that. I'll just bench. I'll bench without.
I'll bench normal.
I'll bench.
I'll bench standard. I'll bench manual. You know what I think would actually fix it? This is my weird, super big theory, but I think the biggest problem with sports like strongman and powerlifting is that it's so individually focused.
Yeah.
If it was team specific, if you had a team of 5, like Team America or whatever, that you built out and you built a whole narrative package around that team, I think then it'll be successful. Because that's the problem. The problem, in my opinion, is that the only reason why you and I care a lot about the athletes is that we know who they are. We know their personal life. We know their story. But there's no way that the average person can know that.
No, they can't. You're right. Yeah. And you have to, all athletics, and I'll use basketball, professional basketball, NBA, WNBA. WNBA was complaining just recently that they weren't getting paid enough.
Right. Yeah, I remember.
Now, I can take that down a whole different road, but one of the NBA players, well-known guy, spoke publicly about you're not getting paid because you girls don't know how to create the story to make the players attractive for people to want to follow them and watch
it's
them.
Funny because they're trying to correct that really hard now, but it's so violent of a turn that it just feels almost forced, and that sucks that it's like that. Because the reality is that there are insane stories in women's basketball that are very attractive.
Oh, yeah.
But they've never been able to market.
Yeah.
I can't remember who the player was, but there was a player who played while she was pregnant.
Oh, yeah. I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's like the fact that I know about that story is great, but the fact that I don't know who it is probably means that y'all failed on the marketing side on that.
Yeah, I think she was a guard, kind of like a point guard.
Yeah.
So she was active up and down the floor, and you're right. In fact, I think she played all the way to the point of like just a few days from delivery.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I think she might have, and I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. Again, I'll get fact checked, but I think she had to miss a game or something later down the line because of it.
Yeah. I do remember that. Good point.
Yeah.
But yeah, telling the story in sports is huge.
I think people forget that, man. I think a lot of people forget that. Because sports in their mind is a binary thing. Higher the score, the more it is. But the reality is that most fans go for the winning team because the winning team gets the most airtime and the most story time.
Yeah, stories. It's all about they all know about the stories. And you take the hard luck sports guy, the one that can't quite win a division or win an individual, but he's got a great story. You hear more about that dude.
I mean, you get a movie.
Yeah. So it's
here's the thing. Like for me, I don't really know a lot about sports, right? But even I know the whole Magic Johnson Celtics like situation.
Yeah.
Even I know all about that kind of stuff because those are cultural touchstones within performance in that world that, I mean, that's just super interesting. It's super marketable, but also it's good.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why 30 for 30 has never done a powerlift. I don't know that for a fact. 30 for 30 might have done a powerlifting video. I don't know. But like the fact that I probably don't know about it probably means that there hasn't been like a big explosion in narrative that's really necessary in the sport.
Yeah.
You know, and part of it might be also because the narrative of this sport is not necessarily marketing appealing or market appeal. There's not a lot of market appeal for it.
Yeah. Probably one of the most fascinating stories for me in the powerlifting world. And I didn't really know about it until I started after the bodybuilding thing, kind of getting into it a little bit, is Louis Simmons.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that story right there, West Side versus the World, and it wasn't an artistically genius of a film, a documentary, but man, was it interesting.
And it's a cultural touchstone of this industry, no matter how you feel about it.
Yeah.
It's funny because like Donnie Thompson is right there.
Yeah.
Anytime I sit down with Donnie and he tells me stories about his time within the thing, it's riveting.
Yeah.
But it's never covered.
No.
You know? And that sucks.
Yeah. And there's some great stories.
Yeah.
I
know. Yeah.
There's some great stories.
What I would love, it would be so awesome if powerlifting got like the UFC treatment where they basically just had like 5 guys.
Yeah.
Like team of 5 people who had to basically work together. And it's like, you're not going to bench. You're not going to bench because your fucking bench sucks. I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? Like, Like, I mean, it sounds trashy and it sounds stupid and all that stuff, but it's like, you got to admit, like, the sport needs some type of revamping.
Oh yeah, it does. I don't know, and I don't know what the answer is, but man, there's some great competition out there. There's a place for it if you can just figure out how to tell the story and get it out there.
Yeah. Well, I say that was a pretty good episode too.
Man, I appreciate you having me on here.
Yeah,
today.
yeah. No, I mean, and the thing is, and again, we're still running, right, Andrew? I just wanted everybody to know if there's any questions or anything you guys want to talk about, you can DM me at William Strength or at Tsunami Bar Instagram. We can kind of go into that. I know this episode wasn't necessarily focused as far as the equipment side goes, but the thing is we just talk about whatever we want to.
That's what we do.
Yeah. So I feel like we talked a lot about a lot of cool stuff, this episode.
And any of that stuff, applies, especially on the Tsunami side. Everything we talked about in bodybuilding, powerlifting, strongman, sport specific, Tsunami fits all of that.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of territory that we can cover there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, I feel like you're going to see more connections as far as that goes as we kind of go into the future. But the reality is again, all training is still good training. I feel like, I mean, even if it's not optimal, at least it's something. So
yeah, absolutely, something's better than nothing. And whether you have the fanciest gym to work out of. And I go back to my beginnings of working out with those, plastic covered cement weights with a little rebar or a piece of rebar for a bar and the skinniest little bench with the rack posts were just wide enough to put your head through.
Dude.
I mean, you couldn't load one side of the bar without it tipping over. You had to kind of move the bar over, put the weight on. I mean, it's ridiculous how rudimentary my early stuff was.
I don't know.
I
don't remember if I told you this, but I had the exact same setup. And I know exactly what you're talking about because even though they were encased in plastic, no matter where you put them, there would always be sand. Somehow they were breaking apart and crumbling no matter where you put them.
They were definitely reverted. The sand base is in that concrete. It was the cheapest stuff ever.
Well, it's funny too because I remember the first bench I had was like one of those like, I think it was rated for maybe 150 pounds tops.
Yeah.
It was so uncomfortable, so skinny too. I think it might have been like maybe 9 inches, maybe 8. I don't remember. But I remember when we threw it away, I eventually put it in a dump. I cut it apart. When I cut into it, it was literally just like, what we use in the back when we like pack stuff on top, maybe the 3 millimeter foam.
Right.
It was that, like the material you use for like flooring, and then just a block of wood. So what's funny is that like, that's rated higher than 150. Yeah. But man, dude, it's insane. And it's funny because I'm gonna talk shit a little bit, but The Life Fitness benches, I think, are still built like that because they're so
goodness.
uncomfortable.
Are they bad?
Dude, it literally feels like you know the leather they use for like headphones?
Yeah.
It feels like that on top of like metal.
Oh
It's
my
bad.
gosh. No,
It's bad.
I haven't experienced that in quite a while.
Dude, anytime. That's the one thing I love about traveling. Anytime I travel, I try to use the hotel gym.
Yeah.
Because I need to know how bad it gets.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we're used to the best of the best.
Oh,
here.
we got the stuff.
You know what I mean? Like even the stuff that would be considered our economy line is still like the best of the best. So, dude, going to a hotel gym and using a cable machine that has 9 pulleys, the weight's divided by 9, you know,
Oh my gosh.
handles that are like just frayed straps,
Yeah.
and then a bench that literally I would rather worked out on a park bench, man.
Oh, it's bad.
It's nuts.
It is bad. Yeah, that's funny you bring the hotel gyms up because they are terrible.
They are, but they're fun. They're so fun too.
Oh, yeah.
I love like just, I love being able to work miracles with bullshit. That's basically what I'm doing.
It's bad. Normally I go in just to get on a treadmill or something like that. But I take a look at it, and the equipment is really it's pathetic.
It's funny because when I was in New York, I stayed at like a pretty nice hotel, and they had like a private gym, and it was funny because it was nice in the sense that it would have been really nice if I didn't know anything about working out. But because I know, I was like, oh, this is just the worst.
This is garbage.
It's got hollow bars, bars, bro. Like that's, oh my God. I remember I was using a bar. I called it facade knurling. It was like drawn on, you know, it was just square.
That's funny. I haven't seen that yet.
No rotation.
Oh yeah.
The bars didn't rotate at all.
Oh, you should have took a picture of that.
I was like, I don't understand how you could sell this.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
I wonder where they bought that.
I have no idea. Probably like a subsidiary of some giant company that actually I do know exactly where they bought it from, but I don't want to say.
Oh, okay.
So I don't want to shit talk them, but yeah, let's just say they're an industry standard that has gone very downhill recently. But yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Well, man, I appreciate you.
Yeah, man.
That's fun.
Yeah, that was a good episode. I liked it. Yeah. We're good.